what we'd like to do is, in the interest of time, and it's been a fairly long day also, we do have a reception that's going in the evening, starting 6 o'clock onwards. What I would suggest is we will just do a very quick 15-minute Q&A, and then I think you can still be here. Most of the panelists will still be here at the reception, so all the questions can be asked at that point of time. What I do want to tell you is tomorrow, this does not end. We have a session going with Mike Notek, who is chairing the session in CU, and there's a lot of things that this delegation can see in what CU is doing and the collaboratory is doing, along with NREL, from research and development and education side related to smart grid. And in the afternoon session, there would be a 4Z session, which is an actual smart grid initiative, zero energy district for Fort Collins. That's what 4Z stands for. And Sunil Cherian would be heading that. And before I think Alice heads out, I'm going to kind of want to definitely recognize her, because one of the things that has happened, what you see today as Colorado is one of the leading energy transition states, going from 10% to 20% to 30%. And what I'm hearing from Excel is they will actually meet that target ahead from 2022. Is that 2017 now, Randy?
Sooner than 2020.
Okay, sooner than 2020. It can be tomorrow. But one of the key persons who have been involved with the legislation and the thought process has been Alice Madden, who has been very closely working with Governor Ritter, who was the previous governor, and she was the climate change advisor to Governor Ritter, and she has been instrumental in participating with many of the people you see here to see where Colorado is here today. So thank you, Alice, for that. With that, I'd like to open up the question and answer session. As I said, we've got a session in the afternoon with 4Z, which Sunil Cherian has started the discussion. We already had some preliminary dialogue with Ashok and Sunil and me on what are the key hot buttons they are looking from their side. And that, I think, again, was going to be a great session. So let's use this next 20 minutes for Q&A, and then we'll have a close-up, and we'll go on to the reception. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Pikeman from Bright Energy Storage Technologies, and I had a question for actually multiple people up there. It has to do with the relationship between regulation, policy, and profit-seeking utility. So kind of see who of you might answer this. So it has to go to energy storage, and thinking about the trade-offs between distributed energy storage and all of the upgrades that Randy described that are going on to accommodate the reality at the edge of the network. As I understand it, the transmission side of the house and the merchant side of the house have a very strong Chinese wall between them. And storage, it's not really clear which side of the wall ownership of that might go on, although the benefits accrue to both sides. So thinking of that, and also the trade-off between capital and expense in terms of what goes into your rate base, how do you work with the commission and the policy setting bodies?
Yeah, I wouldn't claim to be the expert in how we do that within our company. What I do know is that the storage aspects of it are something that we are studying very intensely. And in fact, it's interesting, even within our own company. I was talking a couple of years ago to the gentleman who was in charge of all of our energy supply. And he asked me, why would you care, why should I care about what you're doing in Boulder with smart grid, right? Because we don't have we weren't upgrading a power plant. And I said, well, the question is, when we put out all of these batteries, and storage techniques and things like this one day, are you going to have people from your plant working those, or is distribution going to run that, or how do you tend to do that? All of a sudden, he went from okay, I'm not that interested, to, I think we should talk about this. So I tell you that, not that it's an answered question, but it is a question that's being actively debated within the company. I think it's also fair to say that it's not a question that's going to be, that's purely a utility question. So for example, we already have situations where neighborhoods, for example, are using storage techniques and different types of things. And no different, by the way, than what's been done in commercial and industrial for years. So I think it's also a question in those cases of how do we go to, what's the regulatory policy around, for example, in terms of provider of last resort. So for C&I customers, we've all along had an approach to how we handle that. As more and more people put in storage, as more and more people put in distributed energy resources, well, do we still have to provide for the time they want their backs, the sun's not shining, but what does that do to other people's rates, things like this. So it's not only a question of who owns it, it's a question of how do costs get allocated when the storage is depleted or the distributed resource isn't available.
We aren't rate regulated by the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, and cooperatives generally are not, with the exception of New Mexico. I think Steve did a nice job of teeing it up. Storage is going to be a game changer. We're doing a lot of research and development in storage. Our board, who is our primary regulatory body, is very interested in that. You do raise a great question. I mean, if you think about storage at the distribution level, you really don't have that regulatory problem of standards of conduct between transmission and merchant function. However, as you go up the food chain, and we just evaluated an above-ground compressed air energy storage potential out in the brush area, it's some land that we own. And one of the issues that you do run into is when you're doing planning, utility scale planning, where you have both a supply value and you have a transmission value, you can run into standards of conduct. Fortunately, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, who we are jurisdictional to, just like Excel, they've loosened the standards of conduct somewhat, so that when you're involved in integrated resource planning, you have the ability to do some in-house crosstalk between the lines of business. But those standards of conduct are probably going to have to be loosened even more as we get more exotic configurations that can come in as either supply or delivery substitute of that. So it's complicated, but at least we've made some minor inroads into that. Again, the bottom line is, when we think about the investment, if our members can get value from it, we can put in local storage. That's a huge value. We're just looking for those breakthroughs and studying, aggressively researching all facets of storage.